present housing situation in the UK.
We can't afford our homes anymore. What are we going to do?
In Britain, the worst housing crisis since the 1920s is happening now. Social housing waiting lists have doubled in the last 10 years, to the point where in the UK, 5 million people are waiting for a home. In London, many are trying to find a solution to the problem. But is there a solution for it? This week we'll have a closer look on the story of Matt and Pedro, who live in a houseboat, and explore how this solution works for them.
Well, we live on a houseboat, of course. I haven't heard of this before. Maciek always liked houseboats, and he always liked the sea and boats in general. I'm Pedro. I'm from Brazil, and I've been in London for about 4 years now, I think. 4 years, yeah.
I'm Matt, and I'm from Poland. I've been living in London for about 8 or 9 years now. By the way, he calls me Maciek. That's my Polish name, but a lot of people know me as Matt. Yeah, I think we had a bit of a we were in luck because we adjusted to this lifestyle kind of gradually, because we lived on a static houseboat, which was on a residential mooring, which means you have everything. You have the postal address, you have an electric hookup, you have the water hookup, so it's pretty much like living in a floating room. I always like to think about it. So when you're in a flat, you've got everything ready. You can just plug it, plug your electric stuff in the socket. The water is running, and on the boat you get out of it what you put in. So for example, like in the winter, there are logs of wood outside, and you're like, if you want it hot, you need to chop it yourself, and then you have the satisfaction. Is this actually, I've done it myself.
I made fire.
Yeah. It's like you can, and in a flat you can just sit around and everything is done. But on a boat, if you just sit around, you will probably like freeze and starve and whatnot. So I really enjoy it because you can't get depressed. You can't get really sort of bored on a boat ever. You're constantly doing something, and it's actually making your life nicer. So it teaches you a lot about just consumption of just how much water you use, how much electric you use, and I really like that actually. In terms of police and sort of law enforcement on the river, you don't really deal with the police as such. You mainly deal with the environmental agency, one of the people responsible for this stretch of the river.
About charges and stuff like that, there are a few costs that you have to take into consideration. Like, you have to pay for a license, which is, it depends on the size of your boat, but it can be expensive. Not as expensive as like paying for things for a house. Buying a boat, it's generally much cheaper than buying a house. Like, you can buy a good boat for like 30 grand.
We asked some people if they knew what was going on.
The narrow boat situation in London, completely unfamiliar.
Living on a boat, I think it's nice, romantic.
It's a bit narrow, I would say, for comfortable living, perhaps.
I'm probably a bit old to live on a boat. I'm sure my children would.
I've got a couple of friends that live on barges, actually.
Next week, we'll have a closer look on squats. Since 2012, it officially became an offence to squat in a residential building, criminalising trespass with 6 months in prison and a £5,000 fine. We'll continue to explore how they live in London and the struggles of living this lifestyle.